I'm Jessica Cabrera, a creative art therapist, mom, wife, Latina, and the voice behind Serenity Through Art. This podcast was created from real life as a mom taking my child from one place to another while also working as a clinician. I often wonder, how could I stay connected to creativity and to other therapists when life is constantly moving? That's how Art Therapy on the Go was born. This podcast is for therapists, helping professionals and creatives who want to stay connected to creativity while navigating busy lives and meaningful work. Because this space is truly on the go, you might hear background sounds along the way. This isn't a meditation space. It's a place where I share art therapy insights, reflections, and studio aftercare ideas you can explore when you have the time. I also be inviting therapists and creatives who use art as a way to express themselves and connect with others. And to the empowered serenities listening, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome back to Serenity Through Art Podcast, Art Therapy on the Go. I'm Jessica Cabrera, Empowered Serenities. Let's begin. Welcome, Empowered Serenities, to this podcast. Happy belated Mother's Day. Mother's Day has already passed. The flowers, the posts, the messages, the celebration, it's over. But even after this special day has ended, many mothers, have quietly had to return to the same pattern, right? And same pattern, which meaning emotional load that we all were carrying before. However, I do want to take the space in this podcast where we could have that conversation today. All right, so it's going to be based on that. So not just celebrating mothers, but I would like to take this space to acknowledge the emotional reality of motherhood. And the reason that I want to touch base on that is because motherhood can be so beautiful and also exhausting. It could be fulfilling, it could be overwhelming, and sometimes both can exist at the same time. And with my personal experience and reflection, as a mom myself, I've learned so much about what motherhood is, which that we don't have the time to pause. And that could be overwhelming sometimes, or we don't even notice. Our body just adjusts to that pattern. We don't even notice, right? To take that pause. So even when you're tired, even when you need a moment, even when you emotionally need to stretch your feelings, right? Decompress, there's still another responsibility waiting. Which it is part of motherhood, right? It's part of it. In reality, what I'm sharing personally is that we sign up for it in a positive way, right? So as a mother, and something else that I've noticed, especially after Mother's Day, is how quickly mother shifts back into caregiving mode. On Mother's Day, I still had my baby was with me too, so I'm sure that we still had to stay in that mode. However, after the celebration passed, and suddenly back to the routine, schedules, responsibility, emotional support, and even carrying everything again, right? And again, I'm not saying as a negative thing or a bad thing. I'm just reminding that it's just still a lot, right? We're exhausted. And as a therapist helping professionals and creative mothers, there's another layer to that. So I'm trying to touch base on that as well. We spend our days holding an emotional space for others, and then we go home and continue holding space there too. You know, this is if you're a therapist, a creative person who works with art, working moms. So sometimes this becomes difficult to recognize where we all are in, right? Like for me, I had moments where I realized I was constantly checking in on everyone else without checking in on myself. And that's something that I'm still learning to work on. It's getting better. Making sure everyone else is emotionally okay. And sometimes trying to mask or hide my exhaustion, my fatigue. I have to be, mama bear. That term everybody uses, most moms use. And I think and that's what I'm saying, I think many mothers relate to that experience. And there's also pressure attached to motherhood that people don't always talk about. The pressure to stay patient, the pressure to stay emotionally available, the pressure to keep going even when you feel fatigue, drained. And sometimes we begin believing that needing rest means we're not doing enough, we're not strong enough. But the truth is this is something that I want mothers to be aware. Needing space does not make you a bad mother. It does not. Needing rest does not mean you love your family any less. Just want to throw that out there. Telling your husband or partner what you need does not make you any less as a mom, okay? Yeah, so one thing creativity has helped me do is reconnect with myself outside of productivity. So not to create something perfect, not to make something impressive, but simply to ask myself some questions, and that helps me analyze things. Some of the questions that I feel like it's common for myself to ask that maybe you could use as well is like, how am I actually feeling right now? How am I feeling in this moment, in this space, at this moment, this present moment? And sometimes that awareness alone becomes the beginning of caring for ourselves again. Okay. And I just wanted to add to that, it's a challenge. It takes practice. It takes time. So just maybe write that question somewhere and just keep it for yourself and ask yourself that question when needed. So a little bit educational layer that I would love to share is that I've learned throughout my professional side as a therapist. There is something called invisible load or mental load of motherhood. So what that means is the constant thinking, remembering, planning, organizing, anticipating, and emotional holding that many others carry every day. And because much of it is invisible, people don't always recognize how exhausting, how draining that is, and how draining that can become. You didn't even know it was there. So just want you to think a little bit over what I just mentioned. Yeah, so another add-on to that is that emotional labor is also a big part of motherhood that we forget that exists. For example, being emotionally present, comforting others, managing emotions in the home, making sure you're holding things together. I'm talking about the emotional part of that. Holding things together emotionally for everyone else. However, over time, long term, being, constantly giving emotion, being there for others without caring for yourself is going to drain you. I know I'm using that word a lot, but that's really what I feel like, and I'm sure you might relate to that. It's you're drained, you're exhausted. It's going to drain you, and you're going to have no energy. So, one thing I think is important to talk about is identity, because sometimes mothers become so focused on caregiving that they lose connection to them. We lose connection to ourselves, to them, to you, to yourself. Outside of that role of being a mother. So maybe not completely, but enough to feel disconnected from parts of who you are. And some of those things could be being creative, focusing on your hobbies, take a focus on your self-care, rest, focus on your individuality, right? And just a reminder that reconnecting with yourself doesn't mean you're disconnecting from your family. It doesn't mean that. So that's why you should reconnect to yourself. It doesn't mean that you're disconnecting from family. You're not. It means that you're remembering that you matter too. You matter. You're important too. And I also want to highlight something very important, is that you can love motherhood deeply. I do. I love it. I will never change it. I will never change that. I love being a mother. However, there's moments that I still feel overwhelmed. We all still feel overwhelmed. And there's ways we could work on that and see a decrease. At least see a decrease. It may not even disappear ever. We're going to be overwhelmed, but we want to see a decrease. Yeah, you could feel grateful about motherhood and still feel exhausted. And those experiences can coexist. It could coexist. That's what I'm saying, that if you want to being overwhelmed, the focus is to decrease it, not to make it disappear, because it could coexist. So giving yourself permission to acknowledge both is important. And so I do want to share ways that you could reconnect with yourself. There's strategies for that, and I'm glad that I could share this in this space. If you haven't done this yet, I do want to share a few gentle ways mothers can reconnect with themselves, with yourself, especially on busy days. I feel like every day is a busy day, right? Well, I feel that way. So, number one, small moments matter. They do. It doesn't have to be a full self-care day. It could be just a few minutes. a cup of coffee without multitasking. Oh, I had to learn that the hard way. I would say, because I multitask so much, it's just part of me. But I'm seeing the decrease. I just take a pause and just focus, in this case, like this example, just on my coffee, drinking, just stay there, maybe watch a show. It could be a quick sketch if you love art. A moment to breathe before entering the next responsibility. Okay. Number 2, use creativity without pressure. Don't force yourself. Creativity doesn't need to be productive to matter. For example, doodling, coloring, painting, writing. Oh my God, that one's like a big hit. Journaling. So even small moments of expression can help release emotional tension. You could use digital. That's something that you enjoy doing as well. Number 3, ask yourself one question. And you could put this in a little notepad and just stick it on your wall. Ask yourself this. At the end of the day, I want you to try ask yourself this. What do I need right now? And I know I've shared these strategies before in a podcast, but I feel like this is like a highlight. It's commonly used, and it helps out in general. So asking yourself, what do I need right now? Not what that person needs or everyone else needs. Not what has to get done at this moment, is what you need. All right, so that's some of the strategies. Write it down and keep it for yourself. So hopefully that was helpful. And again, you're not alone, because I'm still exploring this, and as I'm seeing a decrease in a lot of things, and as I'm saying, it's okay to continue exploring. Yeah, so now for our Studio Aftercare. As always, before we end the podcast, let's take a moment for this Studio Aftercare. Yeah. So if you have any art materials with you, could be digital, just take that out. So what I call is what I give and what I need. You could tweak it, it's okay. It's what I give and what I need. So take a piece of paper and divide into 2 sections. On one side, create colors, shapes, could be words, marks, whatever you feel comfortable in creating. And that's going to represent what you give to others, right? So you can even put on top of the paper, what I give to others, right? So that's one side of the paper. I think I hear my baby. My baby woke up from the nap. So the other side is what I need for myself, right? What I need for myself. There's no right or wrong way to do this. There's no right or wrong. This is for yourself to keep. Like, just notice what comes up. Notice what just comes up. And as you look at both sides, like, gently analyze, process, and reflect on what you created. And keep this. I always encourage people not to throw this stuff away. If you can, just keep it, because when you look back at it, you could just compare and see what has changed, and that's so helpful. And something else that you could add at the end after analyzing is asking yourself, have I been giving myself any of what I continuously give to others? Right? That's something that that question could help after you finish it, and that, help process and analyze what you created. All right. Yeah, so that's the Studio Aftercare. Hopefully you get to do this. I might create these. I've done some of this, most of them, but I'm going to record it and put it on my Instagram. So yeah, to the mothers listening today, I want to send a message to you. I want you to know that being tired does not mean you're failing. You're not failing. Needing support does not make you weak. And taking care of yourself is not selfish. You're not selfish. Don't try to take that out of your mind. We all deserve care too. We all deserve those moments. All right, so I just wanted to share that. And yeah, let me go get my baby. She just woke up from her nap. So thank you again for spending this time in today's episode. Empower Serenities. I'll see you in the next episode. Happy belated Mother's Day. Thank you. Thank you for spending this time in creative reflection. Remember, you can care deeply for others while still creating space for yourself. To the Empower Serenities listening, stay grounded, stay creative, and move gently through your work. I'll see you next time on Serenity Through Art Podcast, Art Therapy on the Go.